everyone, welcome to the Sip and Spin. I am the Tipsy Spinster. It's a beautiful summer day here in the Midwest. In my glass is a Mojito. This is one of my favorite summer cocktails for two reasons. One, I have a plethora of mint growing in my backyard, especially pineapple mint. It's just taking over the backyard, which is great. Two, mojitos are, in my opinion, the easiest cocktail to flip back and forth between with alcohol or without alcohol. So a mojito is nothing more than fresh lime, simple syrup, mint, and soda water. And then you can put the rum in or not put the rum in as you choose. Polar, the water company Polar, makes a really fun ginger lime seltzer, which is great to top. Now, this is pineapple mint, so I have pineapple rum and then I topped it with coconut seltzer. So this is a pineapple mojito in my glass that I will be enjoying during today's show. I haven't done a full-length show for a while, and I wanted to talk a little bit about that. One of the biggest reasons why I have not done a full-length show is as I jumped in and as I was reviewing as I was working through the 100-day project, I was also looking through social media and I was looking on YouTube. And what I realized is that there are a lot of redundancies across social media platforms with fiber artists talking about very similar things. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I think it's amazing. I think it's great. Just like with learning or teaching, the way that one person teaches it might not be the best way for you to learn how to do that. So it's really wonderful that there are a lot of different fiber artists talking about their journey and how they learn specific techniques using the tools that they're using. I didn't want to just add to that redundancy though. So one of the first things that I did is I stepped back and I started to get ready for the Tour de France and the Tour de Fleece, which is absolutely my favorite event of the fiber arts year. This year I did something a little bit different, which was another reason why I was not posting as often. I created a mini magazine, and this is an e-magazine. I just had one copy printed for myself, so I could take a look at what it would look like in print and to see how everything laid out. But I designed this for the new Tour de Fleece participant. And there are some fun articles in here. I'll make sure to put the link down in the description if you would like a copy of it. They are still available. And I got a lot of really nice feedback on the magazine idea. And so I do have a couple more in mind that I'll be working on. So that's kind of one of my big outside of social media projects is I will be working on a magazine. The other thing is I was looking through and there are so many new spinners entering the fiber arts. It's beautiful. It's absolutely amazing to see how spindling has grown over the last year or so. And so one of the things that I wanted to talk about today is plying. So after you get through that first stage of learning how to spin, kind of your next step is deciding whether or not you want to ply your yarn. I'll be right back and we'll dive in and we'll start talking about today's episode, which is all about plying. I'll be right back. Okay, so once you have sort of mastered the art of spinning yarn, the next step is to think about plying. And so I want to talk about a couple of things. And forgive me if I ramble. Plying is such a huge arena. I'm trying to cram a lot into this episode. So I'm going to start by talking about fiber. So this particular fiber is roving. It's all going one direction. And you can see all of these different colors, which means as a spinner, you have some choices. You can either spin across the top or you can spin from the fold. And I will demonstrate that in just a second because it kind of leads up to the plying aspect. Once you get an amount of yarn spun, then you need to decide what you want your finished yarn to look like. To ply or not to ply. Do you have to ply? No, you absolutely don't have to ply. And here is the sample that I spun, and I spun this from the fold, and it is just the single that I steamed. And so as you can see from the fold, you can still see some of those thick and thin areas where maybe I didn't spin as consistently. The colors, there's some overspun still in here. I have kind of moving from one color to the next color. So that's what the single looks like with this particular yarn. And you have some long color repeats in there as well. The colors kind of stay apart. So that would be the single. And then I have it 2-ply from the fold from a center pull ball. And this is where you can really start to see what a lot of spinners call barber poling. And so that is from a cake spinning end to end. And what does that mean? It means that I rolled a cake and then I'm plying it from the outside and from the inside. The benefit, I'm not going to run out of fiber. Everything is going to get plied. I'm going to use up all of the fiber. The downside, as you can see, I didn't put a core or a toilet paper roll or anything in here. So it's starting to cave in on itself. And once you get down, you can open this up, and usually I end up putting it on my wrist. But that does present a problem when you're plying. You could very easily end up with yarn barf in your lap as you're trying to ply this out. So this is from a center pull ball. And I do want to talk a little bit about center pull ball. Susie Brown of Fibery Goodness, she is the publisher of the Tiny Studio magazine. She did an article a little while back where she looked at, and unfortunately I've got dark on dark, which I apologize for that, but I think you'll still be able to see it. She did a demonstration where she showed that when you are plying from a center pull ball, and this shows it beautifully. When you're plying from a center pull ball, you can see how one side stays, here, I'll do it on my skirt. There we go. That might help you see it a little bit better. One side stays smooth and one side gets an extra twist put in there. So I'm demonstrating this with a flat ribbon because it demonstrates it really well. Does this affect your overall plying when you're plying round yarn? I'm sure it does. Although I've never had that issue, but it needs to be mentioned because it's absolutely true. When you're plying from a center pull ball, you have one piece that stays straight and you do have one piece that's going to have an extra twist put in there. So just so long as you're aware of that, the way to avoid that, of course, is by scanning or re-spinning or putting your singles on something else before you ply them. So putting them on another bobbin, plying them directly off of your spindle, plying them directly off of your spools if you have extras. Now, as a new spinner, one of the things that I remember is when I was a new spinner, I only had one tool. So when you only have one tool, what are your options? And so the center pull ball is kind of your go-to with that. So leave that there. Next is a 2-ply where I spun across the top of this particular braid, and you can see it's just a little bit different. I don't have quite the barber pulling. The colors do blend a little bit more, but they're starting to get a little bit muddier. They're not as vibrant. They don't stand out quite as much. And then of course you can go to the 3-ply, the 4-ply, the 5-ply, and this is the most I've ever done. It is a very large cable 6-ply, and you can see the colors are kind of marbled in there like so. And so you have all of these choices. And of course, as you ply more and more and more and more, the yarn is going to get thicker and thicker and thicker and thicker. And it's going to change the dynamic of what your yarn looks like in the end. Now, the one type of plying that comes up over and over and over and over again is chain plying. Chain plying is also called Navajo plying, but I like to use the term chain plying because it is exactly what you're doing. You're creating a chain that you are putting twist into, and that's what's creating your plied yarn. It's not a true 3-ply, and I will show you why it's not a true 3-ply in just a second. So that's the big demonstration that I want to do today, is I want to talk extensively about chain plying and the use of a chain plying ball. I'm going to set the samples off to the side. So this right here is just an exercise ball, and I've done quite a bit of research and digging on this. So plying balls are typically used, or historically they've been used, in Orenburg lace spinning. So this is a vintage spindle, and this is a vintage plying spindle, and you can see the difference. So the regular spindle is quite a bit shorter. The plying spindle is quite a bit longer. And in Orenburg plying, you're plying two different types of very fine thread together, and historically they would have used a ball to establish that before they started plying. The peahen, the Spanish peacock, TJ, the Spanish peacock, she has the blog, the Peahen's blog. She started using a plying ball when she was chain plying from her spindles. And it is an absolutely brilliant way to set up your single before you actually have to go to the wheel. And so that's what I want to talk a little bit about today, is setting up a plying ball. Now, I talked a little bit about spinning across the top and spinning from the fold. So I am going to demonstrate that so you can see what that looks like. I'm going to clean this up a little bit. Again, if you've got additional questions or if you want more information, please feel free to drop all of that down in the comments section. I do enjoy reading those. So the wheel that I'm going to be using to demonstrate spinning across the top of this particular fiber is my Nano 2, and I have added some pieces to it. I've added the ceramic guides from Snortimer's Hub, and I do have it sitting on a base from the Spinning Siren. And I really do like these bases because it comes with the case that just goes right over the top, which is lovely for keeping everything contained in here. One of the things that I really, really like about the Nano 2 over the original Nano is the fact that it has this lovely guard lock, or the fiber lock built right in. So when I stop spinning, all I have to do is wrap it under and set it right there, and my fiber stays put, which is really, really a neat little feature. So for this particular demonstration, I am going to break off a little bit of the fiber, like so, and I am just going to go back and forth. Now, because this is such a narrow piece of fiber, I'm pretty sure when I started spinning this, it actually all sort of came together up at the top. And this will also show how to join a piece of fiber as well. So I'm doing a couple different things here. So with joining fiber, you want to make sure that you always have the initial piece lying over the piece that's going to join, so all of those fibers mesh together. And then as I spin this, now for me it's always easier to go one direction as opposed to the other direction, and I don't know why that is. So I've gone this way, and now I have to come back. And the way that I do that, I have found for me, is I do angle the fiber and I do angle my hands. And then when I go back across the top, I am kind of holding it to keep it from going anywhere. And moving back and forth across the top, I'm starting to get some of that barber pulling built in to the single as the colors build together. I am not a consistent back and forth across the top spinner. So what I usually always end up finding myself doing is, especially with a piece this thin, and it's one of the reasons why I diz out a lot of my fiber, is I end up just spinning straight from the center and pulling in those side pieces so they don't get lost, like so. And what that ends up doing, as you can see, on this single, is you end up with a lot of marbling and a lot of color mixing going on. And so when I apply that, it kind of all will blend together, especially if I do a center pull ball. So for me, my personal preference is, if I'm going to be spinning across the top for a fiber like this, I end up usually doing that center pull ball plying because it blends all of those colors. The downside is it does get a little bit muddy, in my opinion. Some of these colors don't stay as vibrant. Now, a way to keep those colors vibrant and to keep them all together is to spin from the fold. And there are a lot of different ways to spin from the fold. Most often you'll probably see people spinning from the fold off their index finger. I didn't learn that way. I learned off my thumb. So I will be demonstrating spinning from the fold off my thumb. And as you can see, I've got these colors, and these are the colors that I'm starting with. So I do always want to try and keep the colors consistent or together, because spinning from the fold does keep the colors together quite nicely. Oops, I'm going to get a little bit of barber pulling on this one to get it started. There we go. Oops. As you can see, it's pulling right off the top, keeping all those colors nice and right together. And then it goes right to the next color. All right. And I will keep going like that until I am done with that. And now I have this temporary cap that I need to wind on. So I'll just butterfly it on my finger and then wind it on. And as you can see, those colors are staying together. So I have bands or lines of colors, and I'll do a little demonstration with the two pieces together, or the two together. So on this one, I have a lot more blending, whereas here my colors are definitely staying together. So how do I keep those colors together when I go to ply? So let's talk chain plying. Enter the chain plying ball. and this is an exercise ball. For a little bit more in-depth information on what exactly chain plying is, please check out the short that I did using commercial sock yarn. I know when I originally posted it on Facebook, it caused a lot of confusion because a lot of people were thinking that I was trying to chain ply sock yarn, and that's not it at all. It's just a demonstration of what chain plying is using a balanced yarn. So you can see those chains, and I think it explains it really beautifully. So if you want to take a break, check out that short and then come on back, because I will be demonstrating how to set up a chain plying ball with a single spun from the fold, and that's what I have going on here. As I said, this is a Spanish peacock storage stand with a Spanish peacock. This is actually a shop rat spindle. So what I'm going to do with this very fine single is I am going to create that slip knot, and I can see I've already got a color shift right here, and so I'm gonna bring that slip knot up to there like so. And then, oh no, it is all the same. So I'm looking to see where my next color shift is, which it looks like it's right there. So I've got all of this time. I'm not trying to do this while I am at the wheel. I've got this amazing amount of time to figure out where I want that first chain to go, and I can slide that back out if I want to, which is what I'm going to do because that's where it is. All right, so now there's my first chain right there, and so I'm going to pull that out and I will be ready to start. I'm going to go ahead and do my second chain, which it looks like, though, that's a small one. Go. And this one looks like it's going to be a little bit longer. Yes, it is, like so. All right, so now I have 3 really nice chains going, and I'm keeping everything under tension. I'm going to go ahead and use my spinning bowl for just a second to keep everything there so I can get started rolling this onto my ball. So now I can get everything lined up, and I can notice that, yep, everything looks good. Once I get the ball started, I won't need to hold it as much. I can get everything evened out. So if I have areas that are overspun or underspun, I can navigate those as well. All right. And so now I'm going to slide that back a little bit, give myself a little bit more tension. Go. So there's my chain. Now I'm doing very, very small chain repeats on here. You can do much, much larger ones. There we go. Oops. Okay, and I will pull it through like so. Go up to the next one. And I can see exactly where, there we go. and what my plies are essentially going to look like. Okay, so now, all right, there's blue. I don't want that. That's going to be muddy. So this is going to be a really short one because I want those blues to stay together. Oh, and that's really short too. Some of these are really short repeats. There we go. All right, so I am going to continue winding like so, and I'm just coming up, and now I can go really long if I want to. Bringing that through, oops, and going to the next one. And the really nice thing is when I get to the end, I can make sure that, oops, it all balances out and I don't have any waste. So now I can go to my wheel and just start spinning without having to worry about trying to navigate those chains as I go. And no, it's not difficult once you get into the rhythm of chain plying, but as you can see, being able to take the time, I've been able to keep my colors together on these chains. So I'm not gonna have huge amounts of overlap with those. I'll be right back to show you what the finished chain ply looks like. So as you can see, I am able to go over those little bumps, even them out. I'm taking my time spinning. So there's a bump. I'll be able to flatten it so it's almost imperceptible spinning off the ball. Oh, I do still have some barber poles, darn it. Okay. All right, and I am going to put this on a nitty knotty so you can see what this yarn looks like compared. Now this, of course, is straight off the wheel. I haven't steamed it or set the twist. Oh my. All right, so I'm going to very quickly, thank you. Yes. Just a quick secure on those two ends. And all right, let's take a look at what we have. So this is the two-ply chain plied from a center pull ball. And then here is the chain ply using a plying ball. You can see I messed up some of those. I do have some barber pulling on here, but I did it very, very, very quickly. So you can kind of see the difference. I've got, hang on, this might be easier to see. There. All right, so there is the chain plied mini skein. There we go. And there is the two plied from a center pull ball. Now, because these had such short color repeats, I know it doesn't look like there is a whole lot of difference, but yet, you know, the chain plying one just seems to be much, much brighter. Hindsight, I should have used a much more vibrant yarn. Might have to do this one again so I can use a more vibrant yarn. But you can definitely see between the two ply and the three ply. So, in a nutshell, this was the idea of using a simple ball to set up your plying before you go to the wheel or before you go back to the spindle, if that's what you have. You can do a two ply on here, you can chain ply, there are so many different ways. Yes, 100%, it is an extra step in the spinning process, but it takes out the need to try and chain and navigate. And I have had yarn, I've had chain plying from a bobbin. I've had it spin forward and spin back, and then I end up with this ball of fiber that I'm trying to deal with as the wheel's going, and my hands are here dealing with it, and then I have to try and either stop, I have to remember to stop treadling, or I have to turn it off. For me personally, and TJ, the peahen, has also said the same thing. She consistently uses a plying ball because it takes out the frustration of having to work with yarn as it's being plied. And I think as a new spinner, adding in this extra step might really, really, really be beneficial, because then you're just focused on plying from a ball, just like you would be plying from a spindle or plying from a bobbin. You're essentially plying from a separate thing that's already been set up. Whew, it's been a while, but thank you so much for tuning in and listening to me as I've tried to go through my thought process once again in the idea of plying, whether or not you need to ply, the idea of a two ply from a center pull ball, the pros and cons of that, and then really diving in deep and looking at the idea of chain plying, using a ball to set up your chains before you go to your wheel or going back to your spindle if that's the only tool that you have. So please feel free to chime in down in the comments if you've tried this, if you have additional questions. I do have the shorter reel that really goes into the idea of chain plying itself a little bit more in depth. That's kind of its own standalone feature, so feel free to look at that as well. If you've tried this, by all means, let me know in the comments. I look forward to reading and hearing about your chain plying experiences. As always, thank you so much for tuning in. As always, happy plying.